la mostra di Charleston. Nell'amministrazione quindi voleva una mostra per mettere in luce questa città, quindi il goal era un'esposizione, ma l'aim, l'intenzione è diventata poi invece far visitare agli artisti questo luogo in modo da trarne una interpretazione del luogo stesso, o meglio la storia stessa del luogo, perché Charleston è stata la capitale della schiavitù per molto tempo e nessuno ne ha mai parlato, nel senso che è una storia nascosta, che si tende a tenere nascosta, e invece portando gli artisti a visitare questo luogo, ovviamente intervistando gli abitanti questa realtà così dura viene continuamente fuori. Quindi uno dei risultati è stato quello di raccontare una storia nascosta attraverso opere site specific. Quella più significativa è forse quella di David Emmons, che ha scelto di trasformare in una sorta di come dire, luogo di affezione, luogo di visite, quella casa che appunto avete visto e state vedendo da un altro punto di vista ora, e di fronte a questa casa ha voluto creare un parco, e il successo dell'iniziativa si può individuare anche nel fatto che l'opera dura ancora oggi.
So this was an exhibition happened a long time ago now, 1991. So the project was to make an exhibition. We made the exhibition, 20 installations, boom, end of story. One of, you know, more than 100 exhibitions on my resume. Done, right? End of effect. Like all exhibitions, when it opens, right, we're done. We don't really have to go back. Okay. 10 years later, I was asked to come back to think about doing something else. And I say this is prophetic because while I thought we made an exhibition and we were dealing with a subject of history, we were actually dealing with a subject of home. And this show, which began with this title, Places with a Past, became a project called Places with a Future, because the same question remained. When you make some stories and some people evident, and now they have a place in history, we can still marginalize them, isolate them, make them invisible because they're history. And so there was a crisis as it emerged for the people who had long histories in Charleston, the same black and white people, long histories of almost 400 years in Charleston, whose future was in jeopardy because things were changing. And things were changing with a booming economy and building more houses and more resorts, and you understand in Italy the problem of tourism. Yeah. So maybe just a slight version of that.
Ho detto che è stata profetica perché qui si toccava il problema della casa. Allora, la casa per lungo tempo, la mostra è stata effettuata nel 91, normalmente dopo una mostra uno se ne va, ha curato la mostra, è contento del risultato, poi la mostra si chiude e la cosa finisce lì. Invece il bello, la cosa interessante di questa manifestazione è che ha avuto effetti di lungo termine, in quanto circa 10 anni dopo è emerso appunto un boom turistico, per cui si è incominciato a speculare sulla zona, si è incominciato ad avere quella serie di effetti che noi abbiamo qui in Italia tanto spesso nelle nostre regioni più attraenti, e cioè una denaturalizzazione del luogo attraverso l'invasione turistica. Molto spesso accade che quando si mette in chiaro la storia di un luogo si forse crea un effetto al momento, ma poi questo effetto tende a svanire perché la storia in quanto tale, cioè in quanto parte del passato, viene marginalizzata, diventa parte appunto di qualcosa che sta tra parentesi e che non fa più, sì, parte integrante del presente. Allora invece appunto nel momento in cui le cose stavano cambiando in senso turistico si è ritornati a rivitalizzare questo luogo e le sue vicende storiche.
So we'll really now follow a story of speculation.
Adesso seguiamo attraverso una serie di foto, senza che io traduca, la storia della speculazione.
So returning to Charleston, I said, I will come with some artists and we will just listen. We may not make anything. And also, we need to come to find our aim. Why should we be there? So, returning there for the first time, a citizen, this is across the street from the house by David Hammonds, so just across the street, a citizen made this sculpture to welcome our return. The sculpture is in a place where an old house was, and the grandmother sold the house because she thought maybe was a lot of money, her children weren't returning, and so the citizen put this door here so that we could see what was lost. That was the beginning, to think about home. Another artist chose to make a garden and a school of little children. We didn't realize that that school was supposed to be closed so that a transformation could happen to make this neighborhood from black to white. But making this garden actually has kept the school there, and the change has not happened. Citizens came onto the stage and told their stories under the direction of the theater director Ping Chong. And every time we took a step or we didn't know what step to take next, we brought people together who we came to know, and we sat with those questions together. And sometimes we sat with them in a place that gave us a new perspective. Art makes us see things differently, changes our perspective. Sometimes our perspective was changed because we had a symposium in a boat, so we could look at the peninsula. A symposium in a new housing development on what was a plantation. What does it mean to be comfortable in the rocking chair, where everything is brand new, and where the homes have displaced other people? And part of what we did was to look and find new places that we never saw before, like this big green field. I never saw it before at the port. And that was because when the previous show happened, Places with a Past, there were 900 homes here, and also some streets. But everything had been erased so that it could become a new development. And then we went to look what was the history of this place beforehand. And artists made projects on that site to bring attention to it. And at the edge of this green field were these two houses. And I thought, why have I never seen these two houses before? Because they were surrounded by other houses. But these were two sisters who said they would not sell their houses. They don't live there. They're empty, but they are their family homes. And artists use them to reanimate them. In this, a study of women's clothing, yeah? And to set up a kind of factory in one of the houses, and to create this fashion show of these women floating on the hedge, on the green, between them. mixing fiction and fact, but something that was very alive, that could capture people's imagination. And then we found that these houses were in the same family as this house. This is America's greatest Palladian house. And here the artist Kim Soo-ja made carpets that honor the names of the people who not only tended the rice field, but who built this house, that is, Africans and African Americans. And from that house, which was way up at the top of the map, she came all the way to the bottom of the map with a companion piece in the Atlantic Ocean, where she worked with another house, a lighthouse, and she created a meditation of this work as it moved through colors every night during the time of this project. And back to those two little white houses that became a temporary history center, bringing back the voices of people who had been gone, and with the sisters who were excited to remember this place, have now organized reunions of the people who used to live there, who live now from New York to Florida, and they come every year. But the point of these little places and these little artist projects, as we were looking at this aim of what is happening to home today in Charleston, was to see that the problem was not just a black problem. It was a white problem too, and that everybody felt threatened, even if you were a citizen who's only been there for a short time, felt threatened by the speed of change, the speed of tearing down and building up, of tearing down and not having the money to build, of then all of the other corollary effects on the ecology and the way of life. So this location, this empty field that I told you about, became the site for 350 people. We could call it a performance. 350 people to have a conversation about change. And then we looked at change that we could make, maybe to be proactive, to save these houses that the city wanted to tear down, and people wanted to build, you know, a shopping center kind of thing. And then we found, in fact, that the change happened before we could change, and 100 apartments were built there. But, you know, the sisters thought it made the houses look better, and it was a new relationship. So they still exist, and the city has forgotten to tear them down, because now we give them a name, the borough houses. We name them after the neighborhood that's gone. Another work looking at the problems of the ecology and making in the city a rice field, because this is the crop by which the fortunes were made and the reason the slaves were there, but nobody had really seen rice grow for quite a long time. Doesn't happen there anymore. And so we made this project, and then next to this project, we observed this parking lot next to a theater, and that became enabled by a plan to make a permanent garden that had some of the same qualities of the marshland that is this particular ecology there. So I don't know if you want to summarize. I want to show one more part. Should I continue?
Allora, abbiamo visto un sacco di, diciamo, iniziative differenti. Per esempio, yes, just summarize. Per esempio abbiamo visto questa queste due case di due sorelle che non avevano voluto abbattere appunto le loro abitazioni e che sono diventate il centro per una quantità di persone che si sono incontrate lì, 350 persone che si incontravano lì continuamente per decidere che cosa fare, dopo che appunto queste due case erano risultate evidenti perché tutte le altre erano state abbattute. Prima non erano evidenti, non apparivano perché questo prato non esisteva essendo tutto occupato da case. Allora questo dà l'impressione della massività dell'intervento appunto speculativo e anche di quanto si potesse reagire. Il problema quindi è passato dall'essere un problema relativo ai neri a un problema relativo anche ai bianchi, perché anche i bianchi a questo punto avevano troppo pochi soldi per seguire con serenità il fatto che le loro case venissero distrutte, spesso non avevano i soldi per comprare quelle ricostruite. Comunque tutto questo processo è effettivamente accaduto anche in tempi così rapidi che gli stessi che si sono incontrati, che hanno cercato di avere delle strategie di resistenza rispetto a questo processo, hanno poi trovato che la maggior parte delle loro azioni non è riuscita ad avere un'efficacia, però sono riusciti a, per esempio, far vedere il riso che era, piantagioni di riso che era la ragione primaria della fortuna del luogo, mettere in evidenza attraverso appunto luoghi di incontro, dei racconti che provenivano, queste due sorelle appunto che non abitavano lì però possedevano le due case, hanno partecipato al processo e anche ci sono stati momenti di mescolanza tra realtà e finzione come questa piccola sfilata di moda che avete visto nelle fotografie, quindi momenti di attivazione nel senso di essere proattivi, agire per una sensibilizzazione.
The last place of the future I want to show you is a place very far from downtown, from Il Centro of Charleston, but in this regional story is another example of what has changed. And so this is a community that, like the one we tried to evoke in the permanent garden downtown, is a low marshland, a land which was not valuable, like in Puerto Rico with the mountain, was not valuable because it was very low, always flooding, but because there is the need to have more in our society, now it's valuable. And the problem is there were 600 African Americans living in this spot, and they were people who all are the descendants of those slaves in 1870, free men, who bought the land, and these people continue to live there today. The problem also is that, well, to recognize this history, which is on a sign on the road, is difficult because the road that goes through the community is very fast, so you can't read the sign. Okay. Another problem is if you do look at the community, it doesn't look very important. It's nothing, you know. It looks very normal or very low class, nothing special. So why worry about this community? There's no